You felt it before. One swing out of 50 where you barely tried, and the ball just left the face. No grunt, no lunge, no effort at all. Just gone, long and straight, like the club did the work for you. And then you spent the next hour trying to force that feeling back and it never came. I chased that exact feeling for years. Then I found out a man with one leg had it on every single swing he ever took. His name was Ernest Jones. In 1916 he lost his right leg below the knee, and within a year he shot a 72 on one leg. The move that made that possible was written down, demonstrated with a pocket knife tied to a handkerchief, and then quietly buried under a century of complicated advice. I found the first thread in a cracked old book at the back of a used shop, and I'm going to hand you the whole trail. You don't need a new driver. You don't need to be young or strong. You need what a one-legged man knew standing in a New York department store. Let me start where I ended up, because the ending is what made me go back and dig. Last summer I stood on the first tee with two men half my age. Both of them swing hard. Both of them have the expensive drivers, the ones that cost more than my first car. And I outdrove both of them without trying. Not once. All day. I wasn't stronger. I'm not younger. My back has more bad mornings than good ones now. But the ball came off my club with a sound they kept turning around to look at. One of them finally asked me what I was doing, and I told him the truth. I told him I was copying a dead man with one leg. He laughed. He stopped laughing on the back nine. But it didn't start with me hitting it well. It started with me hitting it terribly and being angry about it, because I had done everything the modern game told me to do. For 3 years I had followed all of it. I bought the launch monitor that plugs into my phone. I took the lessons where a young man pointed at a screen and drew lines all over my body. I was told to load my weight, to fire my hips, to keep my lead arm rigid, to create lag, to keep my head perfectly still, to swing at 90%, to strengthen my core. I did the drills. I bought the training aid that straps to your wrist and beeps at you, and I got slower. My handedness got worse, my drives got shorter, and my lower back started hurting in a way it never had. I remember sitting in my truck in the parking lot after a round, honestly wondering if I was just getting too old to play the game I loved. That was the moment, that flat, sour moment in the truck. Because a thought crept in that I couldn't shake. Every single thing I had been taught involved doing more. More effort, more muscle, more parts to move, and I was getting worse. So I did what I always do when something feels backwards. I went looking for someone who did it before all the screens and the gadgets existed. That search is what dropped a strange name into my lap, Ernest Jones. And the first thing I read about him made no sense at all, which is exactly why I couldn't leave it alone. Here's the contradiction that hooked me. Everything modern golf teaches about power comes from the ground up. Push off the ground, drive with your legs, fire your hips. Your legs are the engine, they say. So explain to me how a man with only one leg, standing on a wooden prosthetic that couldn't push or fire or drive anything, was hitting the ball farther than men with two good legs. That is not a small gap in the story. That is a hole big enough to drive the whole modern golf industry into, and I wanted to know what was on the other side of it. Ernest Jones was an Englishman, born in 1887, and he was already a promising golf professional at a club in Surrey when the First World War took him. In 1916, a grenade cost him his right leg below the knee. He was in a hospital bed, and by his own account, before the wound had even properly healed, he had them prop him up so he could swing a club. Sitting in a chair on one leg, they say he broke 80. Standing on crutches, he could still break the low 80s. And once he had a wooden leg fitted, he shot that 72. Now sit with that for a second. 72. That is a score most weekend golfers with two strong legs will never shoot in their entire lives. And he did it after losing the very body part that every modern coach tells you is the source of your power. So either the man was a freak of nature, or everything I had been taught about where power comes from was wrong. And the deeper I dug, the more it pointed at the second answer. Because Ernest Jones didn't keep it a secret. He couldn't play tournament golf on one leg for a living, so he did the next thing. He became a teacher, and not a small one. In the 1920s, he crossed the ocean and set up a teaching studio inside Marshall Fields, and later he taught out of a small studio in New York City, up on a high floor of an office building, hitting balls into a net. Over his career, they say he gave something on the order of 300,000 lessons. 300,000. This was not a man with a quiet little theory. This was one of the most sought-after instructors in America, and doctors, tour players, and beginners all climbed the stairs to that studio to learn one single idea. And here is where the mystery got its teeth. Because if this man was that famous, that respected, taught that many people that one simple idea, then why had I, 3 years and thousands of dollars into trying to learn this game, never once heard his name? Why was every lesson I paid for the exact opposite of what he taught? Somebody somewhere had let this get buried, and I wanted to know who benefited from me not knowing it. That question is what turned this from curiosity into something I couldn't put down. Because the answer, when I finally found it, wasn't a villain in a dark room, it was worse. It was money, spread out over 100 years, quietly pulling the game in one direction. Think about what Ernest Jones was selling. Nothing. His entire method could be taught with a folded handkerchief and a small pocket knife, which I'll get to, because it's the heart of everything. He wasn't selling you a driver with a name like a fighter jet. He wasn't selling you a $300 launch monitor. He wasn't selling you a swing built from 27 separate positions that you have to keep coming back for more lessons to fix. His idea was so simple that once you truly had it, you didn't need him anymore. And an idea that sets you free is a terrible business model. Compare that to what grew up in its place. A golf equipment industry that now moves billions of dollars a year, built almost entirely on one promise: more distance. Buy this driver and find more power. Buy this shaft. Buy this ball. Every year a new model, every year another promise that the power you're missing is something you can purchase. And an instruction industry that thrives on complication, because a swing you can explain in one sentence doesn't sell a package of 10 lessons and a subscription to an app. The simpler the truth, the less there is to sell you. So the simple truth got quieter and quieter, and the complicated version, the one with all the moving parts and all the products, got louder and louder, until a man who taught 300,000 people vanished from the conversation almost completely. That's not a conspiracy. That's just what happens when nobody makes a dollar keeping something alive. But knowing why it got buried didn't tell me what it actually was. I still needed the move itself, and that sent me looking for the 2 books he left behind. Before I hand you that missing piece, let me stop for a second, because there's a way to keep this whole trail in your hands for good. Picture yourself standing over a drive next weekend, not guessing, not hoping, but knowing exactly where your shots have been leaking away for years. That's what the author put into the complete golf fix system. It gathers every fix, every case, every tool into one place, so you stop chasing feelings and start following a plan. The first fix walks you through diagnosing where you're bleeding shots, a 15-second grip audit that changes your ball flight right away, and the alignment sequence done in the correct order, finally. There's a 6-week fundamental protocol worksheet built for folks who are done guessing, and if you want to go deeper, Precision Golf decodes what your misses are really telling you and how 10 inches at setup reshapes your whole ball striking. And here's something you can test for free tonight. Before you spend a cent, take that key on a string I mentioned, or the 2-finger grip drill from earlier, and feel whether the weight pulls the string tight on its own. If it does, You've just proven with your own hand the one truth this whole collection is built on, that your swing is not the problem, your fundamentals are. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description or the pinned comment. And you're not chasing a season sale here, you're fixing a leak that's already costing you strokes every single round you play right now. Now hold that thought, because the missing piece I found next is the one that separated my smooth but weak swings from the effortless powerful ones. He wrote the first one, called Swinging into Golf, in 1937, and the second, the one people still whisper about, called simply Swing the Clubhead, came in 1952. I finally tracked down an old copy, and the pages were brown and brittle at the edges, and somebody decades before me had underlined passages in soft pencil. Reading another person's underlines in a 70-year-old book is a strange feeling. It's proof this thing mattered to someone once, before it got forgotten. And what I read on those underlined pages flipped my understanding of the golf swing completely upside down. His whole method came down to 3 words. Swing the club head, that's it. Not swing your arms, not turn your shoulders, not fire your hips. Swing the club head. He believed the golfer should think of one single thing, the weight at the end of the shaft, the head of the club, and simply swing that weight. Everything else in your body, he said, is a follower. The hips, the shoulders, the legs, they respond to the swinging weight. They are not the engine, they are the passengers. And this is exactly why a one-legged man could do it. If your power came from driving your legs into the ground, he was finished the day that grenade went off. But if your power comes from swinging the weight of the club head correctly, and letting your body simply react to it, then 2 legs, 1 leg, sitting in a chair, it barely matters. The engine isn't in your legs at all. The engine is the swinging weight and the speed you can build in it. That one idea explained the impossible thing I couldn't get past. And the moment it clicked, I understood why I had gotten worse for 3 years. Every lesson I took had me trying to be the engine with my big muscles, tensing everything, and a tense muscle is a slow muscle. I was strangling the very thing that was supposed to be swinging free. But an idea in a book is just words. What made Ernest Jones unforgettable wasn't the words. It was the way he proved it, with something almost anyone had in their pocket in 1952. He would take an ordinary pocket knife, or sometimes a small weight, and tie it to one end of a handkerchief, or a length of string. Then he'd hold the loose end and let the weight hang. And he'd start to swing it, back and forth, like a pendulum, using just his fingers. Here is the thing he wanted you to see. When he swung it smoothly, the string stayed perfectly straight and taut, and the weight whipped through the bottom of the arc with real speed. The string was taut because the weight was pulling against his fingers, stretching out, gathering speed on its own. He was barely doing anything, just a small motion at the top, and the weight did the rest. Then he would do the ruinous thing on purpose. He would grab at the string in the middle of the swing, try to force the weight faster, try to muscle it. And the string went slack. It buckled and folded, and the weight lost all its speed and flopped around uselessly. The harder he tried to force it, the slower and messier it got. I read that, put the book down, went into my garage, and did it myself. I tied a heavy nut to a 2-foot length of my wife's kitchen string, and I swung it. And I felt the exact thing he described, in my own hand, in about 90 seconds. When I let it swing free, the string went tight, and the weight sang through the bottom. When I tried to force it, it collapsed into a floppy mess. Right there in my garage, a 70-year-old demonstration told me more truth about power than 3 years of lessons and a phone full of swing apps. The club head is the weight. Your arms and the shaft are the string. And every time you try to muscle the hit, you're doing the exact thing that makes the string go slack. That was the clue clicking into place. But it opened a bigger door. Because knowing that the weight should swing free is one thing. Actually feeling it on the course, with a real club over a real ball you're afraid to miss, is another thing entirely. And that gap is where I nearly gave up, until I found the piece Ernest Jones taught to make it real. That piece is where this stops being history and becomes something you can use this weekend, in the backyard you already have. Now I know what some of you are thinking right about now. You're thinking this all sounds fine for a golf pro with a fancy studio, but you can't renovate your whole swing, you don't have a coach, you don't have a driving range membership, and you're not about to spend money you don't have chasing another promise. I hear you, because that was me sitting in my truck. So let me give you the part that costs nothing and needs no special anything. You can do this inside your house tonight, in socks, in a hallway, with a club you already own. Maybe not even a club. Ernest Jones taught it with 2 fingers. He said hold the club with just the thumb and forefinger of each hand, lightly, and swing it back and forth, letting the head swing like the weight on that string. You cannot muscle a club you're only pinching with 2 fingers. If you try to force it, you'll drop it. So the grip itself forces you to let the weight swing. Do that for 5 minutes a night in your living room. Back and forth, feeling the head, letting it get heavy at the bottom of the arc. That heaviness you feel, that pull, that is centrifugal force gathering, and that is your free power. You are training the exact feeling the pocket knife showed, but now it's a golf club in your hands. Here's the second free piece, and this one changed my ball striking more than anything I ever paid for. Jones talked about swinging to a balanced finish, holding it, posing like a photograph. Most of us swing at the ball and stop. We aim at the ball like it's a target to hit. He taught that the ball is nothing. The ball just happens to be sitting in the path of a clubhead that's swinging through to a full balanced finish. So in your hallway or your backyard, swing to a finish and hold it. Hold it until the motion is completely done and you're standing balanced on your front foot. If you can hold your finish still for 3 full seconds without stumbling, your swing was smooth and in rhythm. If you fall out of it, you force something. It's a built-in test, and it costs you nothing but the willingness to look a little funny in your own backyard. And here's the third, the one that ties them together with no equipment at all. Hum. I'm serious. Jones and the teachers who kept his idea alive talked about swinging to a rhythm, a smooth, even count, because rhythm is what keeps that string taut. So hum a slow, steady tune, something with an even beat, and swing to it. Back on the beat, through on the beat. When my rhythm is on a tune, I physically cannot lunge or force the hit, because forcing breaks the rhythm and I hear it break. You already own everything you need for this. A club, a hallway, 2 fingers, a hum tune, and 5 minutes. No monitor. No app, no lesson, no contractor for your swing. I did those 3 things, in my house, for 2 weeks before I ever went back to the course. And when I did go back, that's the day I outdrove 2 men half my age without trying. Not because I got stronger in 2 weeks. Because I finally stopped strangling the string, but I still didn't have the whole answer. Because feeling the weight swing free is the foundation, yes. But there was one more piece I was missing. One final move that separated a smooth, weak swing from a smooth, powerful one. And I found it in the most unlikely place, buried in the details of how Jones described the release, and confirmed, decades later, by the very launch monitors the modern game uses to sell you drivers. That last piece is what I've been building to, and once you have it, the whole thing is yours. Alright, now let me show you the one final move that separated a smooth, weak swing from a smooth, powerful one. Here's where every clue snapped together for me. I had the free swinging weight. I had the 2-finger grip, the balanced finish, the rhythm. But my longest, easiest, most effortless drives had one more thing in common, and I couldn't name it until I read exactly how Ernest Jones described the bottom of the swing and paired it with something I saw on a modern launch monitor screen at a golf shop. Jones described the hands and wrists staying soft and passive so the club head could pass the hands through impact, not the hands leading and dragging the head along like most of us do when we try to steer the ball. The head, that swinging weight, actually catching up to and releasing past the hands right through the ball, the way the weight on the string reaches its greatest speed at the very bottom of the arc. That release, that free unhinging of the wrists at the bottom, is where all the stored speed dumps into the ball. And it only happens if the wrists stay soft. Grip tight, force the hit, and the wrists lock, and the release never fires, and the string stays slack. It's the same lesson as the pocket knife, but now at the one place that matters most, the 6 inches on either side of the ball. And here's the part that made me laugh out loud. The modern golf industry spends millions on launch monitors that measure something they call club head speed and smash factor, the efficiency of energy transfer from the head to the ball. And what produces the best numbers on those very machines? Not the biggest, strongest lunge, a smooth swing with a free, late release of the club head. The gadgets they sell you to find power are, when you actually read the numbers, proving the free advice a one-legged man gave away in a New York studio in 1952. They just don't say his name, because his name doesn't come with a price tag. So here is the whole move, the complete thing, the perfect swing move for effortless power, assembled from a brittle 1952 book, a pocket knife demonstration, and confirmed by the very screens meant to replace it. You hold the club light enough that the weight of the head can swing. You start the swing by swinging the club head, not by heaving your body, and you let your shoulders, hips, and legs follow it as passengers, which is exactly why it works whether you have 2 legs or 1. You keep your wrists soft so that at the bottom of the arc the head releases and passes your hands, dumping every bit of gathered speed into the ball at the one moment it counts, and you swing all the way through to a balanced finish you can hold for 3 seconds, on rhythm, like a hummed tune. That's it. That's the whole thing. There is nothing to buy. There never was. I took that full move to the course, and the effortless drives stopped being an accident that happened once every 50 swings. They became the normal swing. My back stopped hurting because I wasn't lunging and forcing anymore. My misses got smaller because a smooth swing is a repeatable swing. And I finally understood the thing that had haunted me in that truck. I hadn't gotten too old. I had gotten too complicated. Every lesson, every gadget, every year of new promises had buried the simplest truth in the game under a pile of things I could pay for. And a man who lost his leg in 1916 had the truth the whole time, hidden in plain sight, in a book with pencil underlines from a stranger who's probably long gone now. What I really got back that summer wasn't yardage. It was the feeling that I'm not being played, that the answer wasn't hiding behind another purchase. It was hiding behind 100 years of noise, and once I cut through the noise, it was free and it was mine, and now it's yours. If you're the kind of person who would rather chase a thing all the way back to its source than swallow whatever's being sold to you this season, you already know why I do this. You don't want the headline. You want the whole trail, the dead ends and the brittle old book and the one clue that cracks it open. That's who this is for. So let me ask you something specific, and I really want you to answer this one. Go find something with a little weight, a key on a string, a nut, a small tool, and swing it like a pendulum in your hand tonight. Feel that string go tight at the bottom. Then tell me in the comments, did you feel the weight pull or did you catch yourself trying to force it faster? Be honest. That one answer tells me exactly how you've been swinging your whole life. Leave it below. I read them and I answer. And if you want to come with me down the next trail, subscribe, because this is what we do here. Dig up the practical, real, low-cost knowledge that got quietly replaced by things you have to keep paying for. The next one I'm chasing is even stranger. It's an old method for reading the grain and the break of a green, using nothing but the direction the grass shines in the light. Something the old caddies knew cold before anyone sold a single putting gadget. I found the first thread already, and it goes back further than I expected. Come find out with me. Now, this video showed you the trail, but the full Ernest Jones swing method, move by move, the way I rebuilt my own swing is waiting inside the practical wisdom circle. It picks up right where I stopped. In there, you can ask me your own question, and I answer you myself, a real person. And you won't be alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on screen, cancel any time, one click. Come join me. Now that you've found that effortless power, let's put it to work where it really counts. In the next video, I'll show you the simple footwork that can shave several shots off your score. It's starting right here.